From its gorgeous landscapes, gripping acting, and historically inspired combat animations, 1348 Ex Voto makes a strong first impression in its opening moments, seeming to promise something bold is about to follow. However, it doesn't live up to that promise at all, quickly abandoning the interesting bits of its story and leaning most of its gameplay on shallow and shoddy combat and mission structures. Even its beauty is compromised by bugs and glitches that make playing through it a burdensome vow to keep.
Our sins have blighted the land, and now we face his divine punishment. The angel of death, a great pestilence, the wrath of God itself.
The story of Ida, the knight-errant we pilot through this blood-soaked Black Plague era hack and slash, and her charge Bianca is a bit of a mess. On the whole, it's pretty straightforward. Bianca is meant to be shipped off to a convent because her low-born parents can't afford to raise her anymore, but before that happens, their village is sacked, Bianca is kidnapped, and Ida pursues the bandits to get her back.
I must get to the town.
It's played like a standard damsel-saving endeavor for most of its brisk 5-hour runtime, and the backdrop of the closest thing humans have to a real post-apocalypse makes for a promising setting for such a tried-and-true tale.
Meet me in combat, and let all here bear witness.
But its attempts to upend this classic trope, specifically through Ida's gender, land pretty flat. A woman as the gallant knight is certainly subversive, and she spends the first half of the story being identified by others as a boy and not correcting them. This is an interesting thread that's left bare early on, and when it is eventually pulled around midway through, it immediately unravels before the concept is dropped completely.
Villains have no honor when it comes to women.
Same goes for the mild implications of a queer romance between the two leads. Ida's pining can be read as infatuation, but as the story progresses, there's less and less room to call what these two women have a romance. It's far easier to interpret her one-track-minded mission to save Bianca as a desperate need to not lose the last person left in her life, as the rest of her highborn family have been killed by the ongoing pestilence.
It is too dangerous.
What if I ask? Quickly, before you're caught.
It's all at least very well acted, unsurprising considering the main pair is played by Albie Baldwin and Jennifer English.
Fight or yield.
You will ruin your vestments.
But even the sparse few minor characters that get more than one speaking line are delivered with gusto.
We toiled for him. We filled his silos with grain, his coffers with coin.
The camera work and shot framing really speaks to how inspired by prestige film Ex Voto is, and while this is no A24 cinematic event, it does a great job filling the blanks in the story with palpable tension and tone. Some animation glitches really mar the affair though, specifically how mouths and eyes twist and bulge unnaturally during moments of heightened emotions. The way the lips curl on a certain sinister flagellant about a third of the way through was uncomfortable to the point of comedy in a scene thick with very not funny drama.
You cannot turn from him. Turn from me. I speak his word and know his will.
Release me.
When you aren't watching the story unfold, you can interact with Ex Voto in two very simple ways: exploring its linear environments and killing everything in them that moves. Every chapter starts almost exactly the same way, zooming in on some distant point of interest, unsubtly calling you towards it, and then trudging your way to the finish line. The process through every leg of the journey plays out almost exactly the same way too. Quieter sections of walking and climbing, broken up by little skirmishes in areas that only exist so bad guys have a place to materialize. It's generations old game design, but not in the way some contemporary games will use to invoke a sort of simpler time energy from the era. Instead, it plays how you might imagine the healing loaves of bread in Ida's pack probably taste: cold and stale.
As ordained, all sin and corruption shall be scourged.
Most of the locations look good from mid-range or farther, especially outdoor zones like the white rocks of the mountainside or the verdant emerald forests, though blobby textures and jagged edges betray the grandeur of it while up close. These areas have lots of nooks and crannies where collectibles can hide, but there's only one path to your main objectives. And without a map, it can be hard to know whether or not you've searched a side route, as some of the poorly landmarked layouts start to blend together. It's easy to miss a lot of extra goodies on a first playthrough, only to realize on a second that quite a few of them were in places you definitely looked previously, but because you maybe didn't stand close enough or at the right angle near them, no prompt appeared to pick them up. This finicky responsiveness becomes your own personal plague relatively often. When it's time for Ida to wield her blade, the proceedings are usually pretty drab. Mixing one-handed and two-handed attacks, you flail through 4-hit combo strings in order to break enemy guard gauges and slice them up when they're vulnerable. Holding the attack button while in either stance charges up heavy attacks, which do more stagger and damage, but are telegraphed and easy to avoid. There's no real benefit to switching between the light attacks and combos against most regular enemies unless forced to, but there can be some benefit to using light attacks to cover for your heavies, making them more likely to hit and break stagger bars down faster. There's a short recovery time after a combo is finished, and enemies usually use that space to throw a string of attacks of their own. These are easily blocked until you run out of your own stagger gauge, and less easily dodged thanks to how weird the timing for attacks can be, as they sometimes vacuum towards you to make up distances that seem unintuitive in action. The window of impact also seems off time from an enemy looks like it will land a strike, which is frustrating during the sections of Ex Voto with enemies who cannot be blocked. Enemies attack one at a time most of the time, but can be tempted to pile on if you venture too close to a passive one while actively engaging the main antagonist. Occasionally they get feisty and try to jump you, but it always feels like the enemy logic confusing itself into becoming a problem, rather than an intentional way to spice up difficulty. This back and forth dance gets sort of rote pretty quickly, and it isn't saved much by the skills you can learn to elongate your combos, add a parry window to your block, or introduce a perfect dodge that slows down time. These upgrades are strong in a bubble, but they don't deepen the shallow combat at all, and they don't present any new ways to engage enemies besides mashing attacks in longer stanzas. The same goes for trinkets and weapon parts, which can be found hidden in the world. These can have more dramatic effects on combat, like letting you regain health when you perfect dodge, but it just increases the rewards for playing the only way you can. That said, there is at least a little customization required with them, since you can only have a certain amount of trinkets equipped at once. Weapon pieces have passive effects that are noticeable when compounded. You can focus your pommel, grip, guard, and blade loadouts, all to make two-handed attacks more powerful, for instance, but most enemy encounters are pushovers, and rooting around to collect all these boons isn't worth the effort when just being a more patient masher can do the job as well.
Pestilence, they cry. What a feeble excuse for betrayal.
1348 Ex Voto is sick with its own pestilence. Every attempt it makes to upend the status quo for stories like this either goes criminally unexplored, is undercommitted to, or was never really deep to begin with. The rigid mission structure makes poor use of the beautiful areas throughout, giving you space to explore but nothing all that interesting to do otherwise. And every few minutes you'll have to plod through soupy, boring combat that never changes no matter how many options to modify small parts of it exist. The best parts of this package, a great setting, picturesque landscapes, and some truly standout acting, would just be better served without all the video game bits around them. For more, check out our reviews of the Fatal Frame 2 remake or Styx Blades of Greed, and for everything else gaming, stick with IGN.